Hello folks! Well, I'm coming to you very fatigued already, out of breath, gasping for air as we ascend this series of mountainous switchbacks. Well, that's where we are for you, entering our 34th state yesterday and really going into this state for the first time as a whole. I think we've done ourselves really well here on the coverage project, coming in at 6 weeks on the road. Yeah, that's a long time. I think we've done ourselves well here in the American West so far. We have plenty more content to see. Wow, I really need to conserve the way I talk. This is no joke. Altitude sickness is a serious matter, and here at, I don't know, 7,000, maybe 8,000 feet above sea level, it's no joke. So yesterday at the Four Corners, we entered our 34th and 35th states, Colorado and Utah respectively, but that was more of a border novelty than anything else. But here we began our true expeditions and adventures here in Colorado. Colorado? Colorado? I don't know. You all tell me how that's pronounced. I've always said Colorado, but it could be very different. Now that we've entered our 34th state, Colorado, there are lots of things Colorado is known for. It's a huge tourist destination, and you can see sort of why. There's plenty of things to do, plenty of fun, cultural, historical, natural attractions here in this state, which leads me to the question we have not answered yet. What comes to mind for you all when you hear of Colorado? If nothing else, just take a glance at its nickname, the Centennial State. Colorado was a state that was founded and admitted to the Union in the year 1876. Now that's 100 years after the US got its independence, hence the nickname Centennial State. It's a state that celebrates, with its admission to the Union, the 100th anniversary of the US. There's plenty more to know about Colorado. For one, I mean, just take a look around us. Vast natural beauty, and it's not just here where we are. It's all over the state. Of course, the Rocky Mountains, there's the Colorado River, and there's beautiful forests all across this vast land. And so as a result, that permits a bunch of outdoor activities to be had here in Colorado. In the summertime, hiking, of course, that's what we're doing right now. Rafting on the rivers all across this state. And in the wintertime, the Rocky Mountains have a great quality of snow, which allows for skiing and snowboarding and other wintertime activities. You might be quick to say that, hey, on a map, Colorado looks exactly like Wyoming. They're both rectangles. Well, don't say that to anybody from Colorado. They will be quick to vehemently tell you, no, Colorado is not the same as Wyoming. It's a bit wider. So make sure you get that in your mind, that they are different. You might think of the history, the vast history and culture that encompasses Colorado, from the culture of the Native American peoples that first inhabited this place to, well, the Old West history. This place used to be a treasure trove full of gold and silver, and that prompted people to head west to see if they could get lucky in the mining industry with all the ores that were abundant in this state. And lastly, for Colorado, this is definitely a recent thing, but the very independent, free-minded attitude of the people who live in Colorado. You may think of them as a bunch of tree-hugging, pot-smoking hippies, but they definitely love the environment. And as I said just a second ago, yes, it's known for being one of, if not the most weed-friendly state in the US. So if you're about that life, well, Colorado is going to be a lucky haven for you. Anything else I'm missing? Maybe Denver, you know, the capital city. But other than that, what comes to mind for you all when you think of Colorado? Oh good, we might be done with the switchbacks here. That was a long, strenuous hike up, and we're not even remotely done with this one. So let me introduce you to our first real location in Colorado. So Colorado, like any state, can be divided into regions. The region of Colorado that we're in right now, to start things off, is known as Southwest Colorado. And wouldn't you know, it's the region of the state that is most culturally southwest. It's not really characterized by the huge, lush forests, although it is kind of green here. This is the most arid or desert-like region geographically, and there's a lot of cultural connections with states like New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah. Of course, it's closest distance-wise, so that's going to make sense. Among the features of southwestern culture in America, as we've discovered here in the Coverage Project in previous videos on this trip, you're going to find the best preserved remains of the indigenous cultures of America. The ancestors of these people once inhabited a lot of southwestern Colorado, just like the other states. The remains of their culture are washed away with time. Luckily though, where we are in Mesa Verde National Park is where probably one of the best intact, most preserved, most well-kept remains of these ancient indigenous cultures lie. Oh my goodness, from such an elevation you can see so much of the surrounding countryside. Maybe a bit of farmland, but a lot of preserved forest. Much of the place preserved by the borders and the boundaries of this national park in Mesa Verde. There are many places, not just Mesa Verde, which still preserve a lot of the ancient remains of these cultures. And it's very important, not just to preserve them, but for people to be aware of the fact that the people, the descendants of these ancient indigenous people, still inhabit the lands today. So given its significance, its importance to the culture and the history of North America, UNESCO, that big worldwide organization, decided we're gonna use this as one of our World Heritage Sites. Only a very small amount of UNESCO heritage sites are even in the US. Most of them are in Europe or Asia. Mesa Verde is worthy enough to get that recognition. Wow, this view is just outstanding. Miles and miles of our surroundings clearly visible on this nice day. Doesn't very much rain here, but who am I kidding? It rained a lot in Arizona and New Mexico, so it could rain here eventually, but let's hope we don't get rain to see more of this beautiful area. We're so high up, that is the road. That's the little car right there, driving oh so slowly across these steep landscapes. We're here for 2 days, so we'll have plenty of time to see all that needs to be seen. Unfortunately, there's a lot that is closed in the late summer, just our luck, but we're going to see as much as we can and try to see the most important things that you should be seeing if you ever take a visit to Mesa Verde. In Spanish, Mesa Verde means green table. And looking at that, you can see why the explorers who ventured through the Southwest called this Mesa Verde. This is a desert, but the only thing obscuring and disguising that impression are all the trees that are suitable to this climate, masking the barren desert that would have been. Yeah, let's not waste any more time. Per my usual habit, I tend to waste a lot of time talking and rambling on the most unnecessary of places. But hey, look at this great view. But yeah, let's get to the points that matter. This is the highest point in Mesa Verde National Park, and what a majestic view of all the mountains, valleys, mesas, everything in the distance. Anyway, back to your regularly scheduled scenic montage. Okay, so although the path we're walking on looks quite convincing of a desert, you saw in that little scenic montage there were enough trees to maybe say, well, it's not exactly a desert. It might just be a transition zone between the stark rocky mountains of more northeast Colorado and a more arid high desert and plateau area full of juniper and pinon trees, two of the types of flora that can actually grow in this environment. There's a lot of natural beauty to be had here in Mesa Verde, but there's also a lot of cultural beauty. Take a look at what's in front of us. Now that, maybe a little less than a millennium ago, was a thriving village or little town. So that over there is known as the Spruce House. It's one of many, many cliff dwellings that are found all over this park. And so they were originally inhabited by the ancestral Puebloan people who used this for about a century. Of course, there were people here for much longer than 100 years. About 1,500 years ago, the first indigenous people moved into this Mesa Verde area and inhabited anywhere from the mesas, the top, to the bottom of them. And for a long time, they were basket makers. That was what they were known for by archaeologists. Now, this original basket maker culture adapted to their environment in such a way that they could use all the nature around them to better their living conditions. And so they learned new skills like pottery. Lots and lots of potteries found in the valleys below these cliffs. Because this is such a world-renowned archeological site showcasing all these cliff dwellings from the ancestral Puebloan people, what archaeologists do is they try to locate all the artifacts down in these valleys, because that's where these people threw their junk. Old items they would throw down these cliffs and they would just be gone to them, but people today are still finding these artifacts of these ancient people over a millennium later. Interesting how at the bottom of the valley the whole climate changes. We now have these huge trees. We're right on the side of one of these cliffs, and you can see so great a scenery, so majestic with all the rocks and the trees, and everything just looks like a beautiful desert view. You could probably imagine that this is what the ancestral Puebloan people would wake up to every morning. Now, I will say this, we are hiking on the Petroglyph Point Trail, but I've been having trouble seeing the petroglyphs. Nearby are signs every once in a while with a number. Maybe that's to direct us, but I still, even in the vicinity of those signs, can't really find any petroglyphs. At least, though, we get great views of this canyon. See, like this, there's a marker indicating that there's something of importance here, but I don't find any petroglyphs. I can't find them. Maybe those are directing me to something else. You know, maybe you need an audio tour that goes along these points. I don't know. But, you know, for the Petroglyph Point Trail, the petroglyphs here are pretty scarce. I can't find them. Where are the petroglyphs? Well, folks, I'm not sure if we're ever going to find any visible petroglyphs here, but I think that we've found something a little better. Now look at that. That must be an authentic remnant of a little village here. So around 1200 CE, the ancestral Puebloans made their homes in cliff dwellings like these. This must have been a small version, but nevertheless it must have functioned as a real sustainable area. Sadly though, only a century later, these people vanished from this area to head south down to warmer areas like Arizona and New Mexico. Why? Well, that's still up in the air. Researchers and anthropologists are still trying to fit the pieces together. Some propose that maybe it was just climatic changes. We are very, very high up in elevation, so it may have gotten too cold and inhospitable for these people, like other places we've visited. You know, one would have to wonder what it would take when someone wakes up in the middle of the night and they really just crave a drink of water. Must have been burdensome to go from here all the way down to the nearest water source. Thank goodness we have our modern amenities. You know, that might be a petroglyph right there. And who knew it was just a short distance from that little village. Finally, some good luck. Oh, hello, what do we have here? This is by far the most petroglyphs I think I've seen on this trail at all. Look at that. Imagine how old that must be. And imagine just how amazing it is that it's preserved to this day. What kind of information does this depict? Is it merely artwork, or is this a broader, more significant message for the future? So apparently I have to climb all the way up there using my hands and knees. How exhausting after an hour-long hike one way. Other than a nice gravel trail, this is the more authentic way to get through these valleys. This is what the original indigenous people had to do. Imagine being in the dead of winter. Yes, this place snows. Maybe having to carry supplies or a child through this weird cliffside. Now, what great foundations are behind us, both underground and above ground. These bricks have really passed the test of time. It's too bad that we cannot ask the original builders of this grand far view house what it was like to build this great wonder. And that's because they all died about 1,000 years ago. But we could still piece together the clues. Archaeologists use this far house as a great area for their research into understanding what life must have been like for these ancestral Puebloans. This grand complex right here, on just its ground floor, holds about 40 rooms. Now imagine what the building in its heyday would have looked like, and how many rooms and how many people it could fit within its walls. In this arid landscape, with terrain and geography that's rather unkind, sometimes even unforgiving, with an elevation range of, well, 6,000 feet all the way up to 8,500. It's a beautiful thing that we're learning more and more about how these ancestral Puebloans lived and sometimes thrived and developed their culture and That's just a beautiful thing in my opinion. Oh yes, we can absolutely, from these buildings and foundations and ruins, learn a lot and unlock the secrets of cultures that have long since disappeared in this world. Well, to conclude, I just wanted to introduce you all here to Mesa Verde National Park, a UNESCO site, a world-renowned location filled with cultural wonder and awe. And after day one of being introduced and getting that background, we now will go into day two, getting an even better idea. We're gonna really get into the meat of the burger, if you know what I mean. So I'll just leave it off at that. Here at the Farview Ruins. Here at Mesa Verde National Park. More travels to come. I will see you at the next location.